Okay.
Got that Pacific Standard Time. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, even though y'all don't even border the Pacific.
We border you, though, so by association.
Good. So thanks so much for coming on and chatting with me. Um, I will introduce myself for folks joining now. Oliver Ma, he series. I'm a candidate for California Lieutenant Governor. And today I have a very special guest. Bridget, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, everybody. My name is BridgieNix, and that is also my stage name. My real name is Bridget Ed Shiner, and I am a candidate for Lieutenant Governor of Nevada.
Wow.
We got the two Loot Govs up in here.
I know, double LG.
Yeah.
So this is something I always forget to talk about, and so I'm going to make sure we do it today, which is what does the Lieutenant Governor actually do?
Absolutely. So, for anyone out there, because a lot of people don't know, you number one, oversee the Senate. Number two, you advise the governor. Number three, serve on the government or on the governor's board. And then it varies by state, but there's various boards that you oversee. So, super important to Nevada, and a big push for why I'm running for this role specifically is they oversee entertainment tourism. And I am an entertainer. I produce entertainment. I have a dance background, fire background, media background. And sadly, tourism is our main source of money, and it has been really low right now. So I'm working to revive tourism and work for our economy.
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
So that sounds pretty similar to California, although
Mhm.
I don't think I will have as much of a role in tourism, which is great because I don't have a dance or tourism background.
What? They didn't teach you that in
No,
law school?
they didn't, and our social media team always makes me dance for some videos, and that's my least favorite part about campaigning.
What? That's my favorite part.
So for us, pretty similar. The lieutenant governor is president of the state senate, where I would be able to co-sponsor legislation.
Mhm.
And there's three in particular I really want to fight for.
Mhm.
In the state senate, I want us to shut down the for-profit ICE prisons that we have in
Yes.
California. I don't
So
think you all
important.
have any in Nevada. Um,
No, but we are collaborating with a
mhm,
lot of law enforcement and cooperating with ICE.
yeah.
I know,
Um,
unfortunately.
yeah. I also want California to hold ICE agents accountable when they break the law. I don't think anybody should be above the law. So if ICE agents are trespassing, if they're assaulting people, if they're shooting moms and nurses and legal observers, they need to be held accountable. And then lastly, here in California, we have some very robust rapid response networks.
Mhm.
I volunteer with the Kern County one, and we've delivered food to thousands of families who've been afraid to go outside because of these raids. And
Yeah.
these are all run by volunteers. And so I think California needs to step up and help these volunteer networks a bit.
Absolutely. You know what's really interesting here is I believe 75% of Nevada comes from either out of state or out of country. And so a lot of
Wow.
people don't realize that our hospitality industry is heavily hired straight from cruise ships. And so we have a lot of people who are on various types of work visa or currently impending. I call it
Oh,
the
wow.
purgatory of citizenship. And so
Yeah.
it's really a hot topic here. But I think because of the cooperations, we haven't been as attacked. It's still been extremely unjust, but we haven't been as targeted as California and Minnesota.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't heard of anything from Nevada recently, but my parents actually retired to Las Vegas. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah. So
Are they
they can
registered
vote
to
for you.
vote or what?
I think they are registered. Yeah, I think they are registered to vote in Nevada now. Because I remember
Amazing.
they were like, our vote actually matters this time for president last year.
In
But
2024?
yeah, 2024.
Yes, it's actually wild. So every third to fourth vote statistically, in Clark County determined the state turning red, which then determined the country turning red. And that was actually a
Wow.
big push for why I'm running because unfortunately, in the arts and entertainment community locally, a lot of people here don't vote and they are a little bit detached from what's going on federally.
Mhm, mhm,
So I was like, I'm going to put my name on the ballot and force you guys to get out there.
mhm. Yes, amazing. But yeah, that's so great. So much of what drives me on this campaign is also turning out communities, building power, getting people involved.
It
I, I have another question for you. Um, brought on by that Nevada election. Everyone has their theory on why Democrats lose so much. What is your theory?
Okay. So it is completely changed since I moved to Nevada. Because I came, for any viewers out there, I came from California most recently. A little bit about my background. I born in Wyoming, grew up in Texas, undergrad Pennsylvania, cruise ship
Wow.
Canada, Alaska, LA for 9 years, then came here and then did a summer in Denver. I've lived red, blue, purple, and even Pennsylvania to Nevada are very different kinds of purples.
Hmm.
There's a lot of contributing factors here. But what universally can be applied is that I think a lot of our Democrats, maybe when they started, they were very up to date on what was going on and the
Hmm.
needs of the people, but things change. And I think in the last 10 years, things change rapidly, right? So we had COVID, which changed everything. And then where you're at, relevant to California, you had writer strike, actor strike, and that heavily affected the industry. Out here, we're having the downfall of tourism. And so a lot of formulas that maybe worked for the economy and worked for everything else 10 years ago are not working now.
Mm.
That's not even, we're not even talking about the political landscape of like global wars, genocides, ICE, things like that. And so within our own party, I'm finding it's super unpopular because people are spineless. They're so scared not to get reelected. They're so scared to ruffle feathers and losing their jobs that they are no longer standing up for what's right. And that's not an attractive quality.
Hmm.
And then outside of that, essentially the Democrat Party 10, 15 years ago stood for a lot of marginalized communities. So whether it was
Yeah.
queer community, artists, entertainers, the Black communities, migrants, people in lower income neighborhoods,
Yeah.
that's what they needed to fight for. So now it's like they want these votes, but they're still kind of selling out to corporations and billionaires.
Hmm.
And you're like, are you guys really Democrats or? So I
Yeah.
think it's just they're really out of touch with who their voter base is, and they're scared. And now we need fearless leaders in charge. You know what I'm saying? That's you
Yeah.
and me.
Let's go. That's actually exactly my theory too. I mean, I'll just share in my context, right? I go into these for-profit ICE prisons
Hmm.
for work to not, I'm not a prison guard. I work with the immigrants inside.
Hmm.
And it's the horrible conditions inside are just so crushing. And one really bad point, which is a lot of folks inside, they have family, US citizen family members, and the
Hmm.
way they stay in touch with their family is they make phone calls and they get charged $5 per phone call. The way they make money to make these phone calls is they work in these detention centers, and for a full day of work they get paid $1. So they everyone I know in there, moms, grandmas, dads, they are working a full week to make one phone call with their kids. So it's a disgustingly
Oh,
corrupt system, takes so much taxpayer money. And then you look at, of course, these are run by for-profit prisons. And these companies then donate millions of dollars into our elections. And they donate about an equal amount to Democrats and Republicans. And so
that too.
that is the reason they lose because you have, on the one hand, Trump and the Republicans saying everything wrong about this country is because of immigrants. And you have the Democrats fighting back with an arm tied behind their back, right? They're with one arm, they're taking checks from the same companies that are brutalizing our immigrant communities. And so they're
Yes.
not fighting vigorously for us. And when you're only fighting with half of your conviction, then you lose. And that's why we lose, because this is a party that would rather take a check uh, from its corporate sponsors than fight for
Yes.
what its working class base actually needs, which is not funding these for-profit prisons, not tearing families apart, but making our states more affordable for working people, making economic opportunity available for
Yeah.
working people.
It's interesting too because I I still engage with a lot of people from my hometown, and this is an area outside of Houston called Katy, Texas.
Mm.
Um, and it's not so suburban that it's removed from the city of Houston. Like it's still, you just drive a little bit and you're in Houston. And then the split of my actual neighborhood was Harris County and Fort Bend County. Harris
Okay.
County is one of the most important counties when it comes to federal elections every year. Dominantly blue, very, very liberal. Fort Bend County is pretty conservative, but it's actually I don't know if it still is, but growing up, it was the most diverse county in the nation. And so you're not looking at a copy and paste formula of like people who live in suburbs and rural areas that just love oil. But you're looking at a pretty diverse community. And I do talk often. I'm picking the brains of people there. I'm like, what kind of information did you read today? Like, where are your news sources from? What are you getting? Because all of our algorithms are set up so divisively. And
Mm,
it's weird because I really just wish Democrats would grow a spine. If they just grew a spine and they were like cool about it and informative and came and talked to people every day, I
yeah,
think they would do a better job. But at this point, we just got to clean them out. Like they have to go. We need a new generation. We need new ideas and we need creative ways of thinking. Like we're not getting anything done in the US right now.
yeah, yeah, totally. And I think another issue is Democrats are so willing to write off so many voters because they think these voters are conservative, and they'd rather insult people than try to build a broader coalition. And I don't mean like you have to, moderate yourself or like, which is the route Democrats typically take. I think there are so many people who feel left behind in this country, right? In the county I am in, Kern County, um, where the college, no, the high school graduation rate is much lower than the national average. The college graduation rate is about 20%, much lower than the national average. A lot of people here feel left behind. A lot of
Yeah.
young people here don't have jobs. And those are the people who are most likely to vote for Trump. And I
Yeah.
think our party, also, are you running as a Democrat?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. Me too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we
Always have
we
to.
have closed primaries. So yeah, I
Got it.
have to.
Got it. Yeah.
We actually
Yeah.
had it on
So,
the ballot to open up our primaries,
okay.
and both
Yeah.
Democrats and Republicans lobbied against it, and it lost. So
It's almost
classic.
like they would rather keep power than participate in democracy.
Which is interesting because most registered voters here are nonpartisan. We have more
Mm,
nonpartisan registrations than we do Democrat or Republican in
wow.
Nevada. And
Wow.
then people pride themselves on it, which I understand institutionally, but then they don't vote in primaries and then they complain about the slop we get
Mhm.
at midterms, and
Yeah.
I'm like, we kind of did it to yourself. But
Yeah. Yeah.
they
Totally
people
fair.
make it confusing on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now, my next question for you. Um, there's not a lot of entertainers in politics. In fact, you are the second person I've met. Um, there's too many
Ooh,
lawyers, too many lawyers.
a
And
lot of
so
lawyers.
I want to ask you what radicalized you and what got you, or maybe if radicalized is the wrong word, like what got you politicized and what got you into running for office?
Yeah, there's a short version and a long short version, so I'll try to marry the two. I do feel that I walked out of the womb and I like opened my eyes in this world and was like, justice. So I've long time, I mean, as soon as I could, I've always been advocating against injustice on a smaller scale. It started first with animals. I've always had a deep connection to nature and animals. Then as I got older, I was on student councils.
Mm,
I was vice president of National Junior Honor Society, then like went on to do like Mu Alpha Theta and every nerdy club you possibly could do. Some of them were related locally, some of them were grand scale. Fast forward college, I was on judicial board, student government. I was president. I actually decided against a paid job and to take president pro tempore on the executive branch so that I could still keep my voting rights. Because you either
oh,
got paid
amazing.
or you could vote. But I was like, no, I want to vote. Don't give me money.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I've always been involved. Like I do see the world very beautifully. Thank
Mhm.
goodness, because the world is like not so beautiful all the time. And I see solutions. I've always been a diplomat, a peacemaker amongst groups that don't get along. The one
Mm.
thing though that this will be a plot twist for everyone who has met me in the last 10 years is now this is judgment free zone, okay? But
Yes, judgment free. I'll
back
share
in the
something embarrassing too.
back in the day, and again, I born in Wyoming, grew up in Texas, and the culture there is very different. And actually, like there are a lot of high paying jobs there. So like the struggle that the majority of the country is going through right now, where like we're just getting screwed by wage theft and wealth hoarding and just being treated terribly if we speak out. It exists everywhere, but it exists less in Texas. And I do think on the sociological level, that's a lot of, why Texas is pretty happy with the way things are. And they don't
Mm,
have to quite tune into these inequities that places elsewhere face. And of course, like not everywhere in Texas, but within that, I used to be a Republican. I grew up watching Fox News, and this is my mom, God bless her soul, she's no longer with us. But for one of her birthdays, I photoshopped Glenn Beck into a photo with us, and I thought it was hilarious. And then she was like, "We can't take this anywhere." I was like, "Why? We love him," and like clueless how the rest of the world lived. But then I told you all the places I lived, and it really opened
yeah.
my eyes up, not just to how people live nationally, but globally. I mean, most of the hospitality workers were from the Philippines, and then most of our
Mm,
housekeeping were from Indonesia. And
mm,
so, just by meeting people, talking to people, I've always been social, and I've attended a lot of things. I went to Australia when I was 14 as a student ambassador for the US. And I just
wow.
believe that the people who care and are in this world for the right reasons, we really can make the world beautiful and livable. Like this idea that we have to take away from one group to give to another group, it's not true. It's lazy and it's selfish and it's dead. We have to kill that off.
I love that. We would not have gotten along in high school. Not
That's okay.
because of the politics, because I think I also had a conservative streak in high school. But because I was not an overachiever, I barely went to class, did not get good grades, did not like the people who did a lot of things. So,
Don't
um,
worry though, I was friends with everyone.
okay, cool, cool. That's good. So was there a particular moment or a particular story that really changed your worldview?
I'm, Trump running for office was huge for me. I I was like, there's no way. I will never forget 2016. I already was advocating for abortion rights because I have what's called PCOS, and for anyone who's like
Mhm.
tuning in right now, it's polycystic ovarian syndrome, and it's really difficult to diagnose. A lot of people have it, and I got misdiagnosed for probably like 15 years because I'm on. Most people tend to be a little bit overweight because of like insulin production. I'm in like the 3% category of underweight, and so
Mm,
doctors just like didn't believe me, but basically I had to go on hormones in order to like force me to get a period, which is now ironically banned in a lot of states because it's classified as transgender care, even though you're like people use it for everything. Girl,
yeah.
a lot of, again, like men don't realize, and a lot of even doctors aren't super educated on this, that any type of woman or girl who has an infertility issue or someone who goes through radiation, chemo, like they're going to need hormone treatment in order to have a chance at having a baby. And
Mm,
so that's when I started getting better educated on hormones and birth control and the need to give that to even children under 18. And then
mm,
fast forward, I learned about ectopic pregnancies and the risks that come with both endometriosis, PCOS, and adenomyosis. And that's when I became like a super large spokesperson for abortion because while all this is happening, my home state is like starting to overturn it and push and push. And
mhm.
then, every clip I would see of Trump just making fun of people, I was like, we're not seriously considering this man. And
I thought he was a joke for so long.
and I would get in fights with people in my communities and families, and like that's when I was like, I cannot be anything associated with this party. This goes against everything I believe ethically.
Mm,
This horrible human being. And people are like, it doesn't really matter what the person is. You don't have to go to coffee with them. And I'm like, true, but like our president should be a role model so that our children don't turn into assholes when they grow up, like at the
mhm.
bare minimum. So I would say Trump running like truly flipped me 180. And then 2020 Black Lives Matters. I just knew that as a white girl, like privilege is huge on my side, and I'm very connected to Republican communities. So
Mm,
I really became an activist. I had a fitness business at the time, and half of my proceeds in 2020 I would donate to like racial justice initiatives and help educate people that privilege doesn't mean you're lazy, but that it comes with a set of equity benefits.
mhm.
So I guess 2020, 2016, and then when I learned every third vote in Clark County, I was like, I got to do something.
Yeah,
What
that's
about
awesome.
you?
Yeah, I think I like to call Palestine my gateway drug into progressive politics.
Mm,
As an
mm-hmm,
immigrant in this country growing up, obviously my family faced a lot of structural issues, but it's very easy to internalize that and think it's your fault. It's because your English is not good enough. It's because your family is different. It's because the food you eat is different. And so that was very easy for me to internalize.
mm-hmm,
But in 2014, Israel launched a invasion of Gaza,
mm-hmm.
um, which now we don't talk about because compared to now, it's nothing. But they launched their invasion, kills about 2,000 people. And I remember thinking, this is the worst thing ever. Like, how can they do this? Like, at the same time, while they're stopping food and water and medicine and electricity from getting into Gaza. And then turning to look at the way that our leaders, both Democrats and Republicans, talked about that invasion, it reminded me so much of how our leaders also talk about immigrants in our country and how the two, it really showed me the two are so connected. And at the core of the system, it's there's so much exploitation and othering people for their skin color.
Yeah.
And so, growing up, like, and this is something that a lot of our young men face, is it's like there's so many culturally significant figures and mentors and people you look up to who pull you to the right, men who
Mhm.
are not the best model for masculinity, but I think a lot of our young men can't have a hard time realizing that.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, when I was in high school, I wouldn't eat edamame because I don't want the estrogen. um
Oh, I remember this was a huge thing. That's a lot of people for a while.
that's still a lot of people. And so I think, like, Palestine was a big reason of turning me away from that and identifying more with racial justice and immigrant justice and fighting against imperialism. But
Hmm.
there's a lot of young men I grew up with who are now Trump supporters. But I still think we really need to talk to them.
I said this the other day. I was like, if everyone in the world had the same access to the exact same information and none of it was biased, like let's
Mhm.
pretend it was just a very point A, point B, point A, point B. I think a lot of us would be on the same page on so many things. And I
Mhm.
can say this about Gaza because my family's Jewish, not religiously, but Jewish background. And um, I remember when October 7th first happened, and I did not know about the history. Now I do, but that you're talking about in 2014. I think 2014 is actually right when I got off the cruise ship. So I didn't know anything happening in the world. You get three TV channels, and it's like replays of the same boat movies. You are
Uh,
completely blocked from news. You don't know what's going on outside of your boat. But I remember October 7th, and one of the best dance companies, one of my favorite dance companies, is Israeli, and it's based out of there, and it's like a dream for contemporary dancers. And I remember them sharing that they were hiding and all these things happening, and you read about the rape and like knowing the history, of course, like of the Holocaust and everything. You're like, oh no, it's happening again. And then after that, I had like read these things about how they were selling black market DNA tests of people who had like Jewish Ashkenazi Jew in them. And I was like, oh, fuck, did I fuck over my family? And so there was like a period where I was so confused how to feel. But then this is where the information is being used either for us or against us, because then a good friend of mine is Iranian, and she started sending me all these things about Gaza, and like I was learning
mm,
how most of the people there are children, like the majority of the population are kids,
yeah.
and it's where we need to stop generalizing. We need to educate, because it allowed me to very quickly overturn. And I was like, this is so bad. This is
Mhm.
like exactly what you said was happening in 2014, which again, a lot of people still don't know that. I didn't know that till I went down rabbit holes for hours, like learning and learning. And I like to learn. Not everyone likes this. And a lot of people don't have the capacity to.
Mhm.
But it's my algorithm now is just filled with like the awful part of which like is not great all the time for our mental
Yeah,
health, because like we
yeah.
need to be in a good state to fight and advocate. But there's no way that if the people who refuse to call it a genocide, if they see the videos and then
Mhm.
they learn of like, okay, well, they told them they could travel to this place as a sanctuary place, and then they bombed it, or
Mhm.
they prevented aid from going in. They're violating international humanitarian laws. that everyone recognizes, and that's a choice. And then the other end of it, and it's hard because we have a lot of Israeli circus artists and dancers, and
Mm,
I know that it's got to be super nuanced and confusing and conflicted to have your like little baby niece being forced to go fight a war that they don't agree in. And that's what people here, I do want like more Americans to know too, is like the way I as an American feel about Trump is the way a lot of Israeli citizens feel about Netanyahu. And so it's like knowing these regimes, knowing how we've always contributed, knowing that we need to stop funding it, and also
mhm.
knowing what we're doing. Like, ugh, if I think too hard, I will cry. But it,
Yeah. But that
yeah,
gives us some fire, right? Because so many of our elected officials are scared to speak up about these things. But really, like what we're fighting for is basic common sense, right? The idea that um, our resources should be spent on kids here, making sure kids in our country have healthcare and education and housing instead of bombing kids in the Middle East. That's not radical, right? The idea that immigrant families should belong together instead of in for-profit ICE prisons, that is not radical. Like if you go
it's
to your
not.
average American, Republican, Democrat, anything, people will agree on those things. But it just the corruption within the party, the Democratic Party, makes it so difficult for the party to put together a coherent and persuasive message because at the same time, we're taking millions, hundreds of millions of dollars from the Israeli lobby, from the ICE lobby, and that's why we lose.
Yeah, yeah. That and again, 10 years ago, timeline. No, you mentioned the word APAC, and 99% of this country would be like, "What's that?" You know.
Yeah.
Now you mention it, and people are like, so there is progress. It's just it is hard when you're on the party that you're like, you guys need to be the ones progressing because we can't convince the other party of anything if we are not aligned.
Yeah, yeah. The APAC thing is very actually triggering for me. That's my number one pet peeve about this campaign
Mm.
because literally every other comment we get on social media is like, "Do you take money from APAC?" And I'm like, we've put out so many videos. Our stance is to free Palestine. Do you think APAC wants to give us money? But anyways,
Right.
that's just a pet peeve.
That's I feel
So
that
for those of
though.
you who are wondering, we don't take money from APAC. We don't want to
Neither
take
one of
money from
us.
APAC. They don't want to give us money.
Yeah, that's how I feel here too. Because people are like, "Oh, are you funded by the casinos?" I'm like, I'm literally lobbying for them to pay their dancers more. Do you think they're going to give me money? But
Yeah.
you know, it never hurts to be too sure of a candidate because something I learned in this election process, and I think this is so good for every voter out there to know. So many PACs that I've donated to in the past. I'm not going to say their names because I still think they're doing really good work. So I want, you know what I mean? I don't want to
Mhm.
smear
Yeah.
them, but this is something to know for the voting side. If you have two candidates that have a pretty similar platform and you're debating over which one to do, one is endorsed by whatever PAC you strongly believe in, whether it's like
Mm.
racial justice or giving to the homeless or reproductive rights, whatever. Don't knock this one down and think that this person is more in alignment with that cause, because
Mhm.
what I'm learning is they will always give the endorsement to the incumbent, the one with a political career or the one who has raised more money. And I have
Yeah.
been told verbatim by both PACs and unions, they're like, your platform's actually way better and you're more our girl, but we cannot endorse you because you have not raised enough money. So we have to endorse your opponent. And then one person was like, our group's going to endorse your opponent, but personally I'm voting for you. And I was like, this is the problem.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
that's good for all voters to know because I regret some of my votes in the past after learning that.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. It's very easy for me to just, if I don't know anything, I'll just go to like the ACLU's voter guide or, some of these voter guides and just be like, oh, I'm just gonna up, 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 up. People, yeah. I think one thing I always try to keep top of mind is people don't care about politics as much as we think about politics, as much as you and I
Mm-hmm.
think about politics. And so it's really important whenever we do talk to them and get that opportunity to plant a seed to talk about the things that really matter, right? Like justice and protecting immigrant families, making California or Nevada more affordable, things like that.
Yeah. You know, something I've observed about Nevada, and like I am 100% going to write a book about Nevada politics because it needs to be studied. no one's giving it enough attention. But
What's the
I
tea?
I I think because people are so tired and burnt out and overworked and underpaid in these casinos that
Mm,
the majority do not have the capacity to even tune into what's going on nationally, let alone globally. And this kind of also goes back to a question you answered earlier, but I had moved out here for a show 4 years ago. It was called Awakening. It's at the Win. And 3 months into our rehearsals is when Roe v. Wade got overturned. And we had like a group chat of 60 people. And I remember putting in the group chat, like, hey, a few of us unfortunately have rehearsal this Saturday, but most of you don't. So make sure to go to the protest. Here it is. Like, go protest for the ladies in the cast. Like, I made it like a cute little message. And all
mm.
these people started messaging me and they were like, what's Roe v. Wade?
Oh, no.
And they're like, what happened? And I was like, oh no. And I'm coming from California where like the dancers are probably at every march. They're like, let's go. And like, of course, there's like a 1% who are not, but the majority
Yeah.
of people are very active, very aware. And even if they don't agree with you, people there still know what has happened in current events. And here
Mm,
we truly are in a desert, literally
mm,
and metaphorically.
mhm.
And I think it's just everyone is so overworked and exhausted. People are working like 60 hours a week here and barely making livable wages, if even. And half of us don't have healthcare. Like, it's
Yeah,
tough.
yeah, yeah.
So,
I think that's why talking about class issue is so important for us,
yeah.
because when people are working that many hours, I think it's really hard for them to get up to terms with like APAC and Roe versus Wade and all of these things, and being able to frame these issues in ways that affect people's day to day, like putting food on the table, the kitchen table issues is really important, right? When it comes
Hmm.
to Gaza, like I genuinely wish I could talk mostly about the genocide and mostly about the suffering and why it is so morally wrong what we're doing to Gaza. But what's a much more effective framing is saying, hey, like your tax dollars are being wasted. This is your resources that are being stolen. Israelis have free education and free healthcare. We don't have them here. Why are we giving them billions of our dollars? And framing it that way.
Yeah.
And it's a tough decision. I don't even know if it's the right decision, but it's certainly effective for breaking through and making a lot of people who are
Yeah.
working long hours, not getting paid well, to tune
Yeah.
in on these issues.
Well, and I think back to myself, when I was like more conservative. I was never like on the ballot as a Republican, but had voted conservatively. And that's kind of the approach people had to take with me too. So even though it can feel frustrating sometimes, it is. You're breaking indoctrination, you're breaking propaganda, you're breaking culture, you're breaking through so many barriers. And so there are strategies to get through to people, and I'm grateful because people had that patience with me.
I love that. I love that. All right. I think last question for me. What's been your favorite part about campaigning and what's been your least favorite part?
Oh, you know what? It feels so similar to auditioning. I was telling someone the other day because you do all these endorsement interviews and people are like, when do you hear back? And I'm like, you don't. Like, unless they're going to endorse you. But like, if they're not going to endorse you, you just don't hear back. And I remember telling my dad, I'm like, but as you know, that's very normal for auditions. We audition every single day and you almost have to be like out of sight, out of mind. Like, that didn't happen and just pretend. And then if someone reaches out, you're like, I got the job.
Hey, yeah.
My least favorite part is the misogyny. I mean,
Mhm.
I expected that. And I've just been kind of surprised some of the spaces that I'm receiving it. And this is going back to what's wrong with the Democratic Party heavily, actually, is older generations, but not that much older, like one generation up. And then even within it, I understand how I present myself, right? Here comes this dancer, burlesque, showgirl. She eats fire. She makes films. She's loud. She's bright. She's like to the point. She's blunt. Like that is upsetting in and of itself to the political world
Mm,
because women, generally speaking, have been pretty quiet in politics. They've
yeah.
gone by a formula to follow the rules and kind of play the man's game. And I said, I'm not doing that. I'm going to show up as myself. I'm going to treat you how to treat a woman, how to fight for rights. And I'm going to call you out when you're not. That is super upsetting, obviously.
Mhm.
But I have been surprised in some of the spaces where I have received misogyny, and you would think, okay, it's just from MAGA people, but it's within the Democratic Party. It's been within some of my queer communities, and it's everywhere. And I'm glad it's happened because I think I was fighting so much for labor rights against ICE. ICE is a big issue here because we have such a large Latino population. And then healthcare and affordability. I would say those are the four biggest issues to Nevadans.
Yeah.
And that I kind of forgot to keep fighting for women's rights, which was my original push to ever be involved in politics. And so
Yeah.
it's where we know it's all intersectional. But even within our own party, our own progressive movement, there's so much judgment and hatred for me showing up authentically as I am and as a woman who is like loud. So that's been my least favorite part. But what about you? I would love to know too.
I love that reflection. Because yeah, that's a side of running for office that I often don't get to see. There is some similarity because I think as an Asian person, especially an Asian man, I also feel like there is this mold of like I should be quiet and not make trouble and not be loud. And so I always try to fight against that. But yeah, for me, my favorite is definitely being able to talk about these issues and like not hold back because I feel like
Yeah.
I was endorsed by the California DSA a few weeks ago, and it's
Congrats.
a lot of pressure. Thank you, but it's a lot of pressure because I'm the first candidate they've endorsed since Bernie in 2020, and so many people are looking to this race as like can the left win power in California, and but my friends and my mentors in DSA, they said we didn't endorse you for you, we endorsed you for the movement. And the best way you can live up to our endorsement is just by being authentically yourself, talking about the
Yeah.
issues that are important to you and don't deviate from your values.
Yeah.
And so that's something I really remember to take with me, and I love doing that. The thing I hate the most is probably asking friends for money.
Ah,
Um, that part of politicking is just awful.
I
I
actually
will
think I
tell
hate that
strangers,
more. I think I would
yeah,
opt for like people to hate me over asking for money. I'm with you. I agree.
yeah, me too. Yeah, like if it's a stranger, like I have no problem talking to strangers, asking them for $1,000, like that, whatever. But like if it's someone I know and like now they feel pressured, it makes me feel so awful.
Yeah.
So if
Yep.
you're watching and you are not friends personally with us, give us money because we need money and we don't want to ask our friends for money.
And for anyone watching, please give me money too because I can't get
Yeah.
endorsements because I haven't fundraised enough because I'm a little too honest.
What's the
I
best way
have
for people to get in touch with your campaign and donate?
Yes, BridgieNix. So as it's spelled there, BridgieNix, the number four, Nevada.com. And then that is also my Instagram handle. But everything is on my website, my donation link, my platform, and I expand to my platform every week. So as weeks pass and more things pop up,
Yay.
I add on to it. So it's not, and I edit everything on there. So
Oh, so cool.
yeah. I do have a quick question for you before we
Yeah,
wrap
please.
up. So, I keep reading, I know like jungle primaries, because again, I lived in California for a long time. So, like,
Yeah.
my algorithm is still very pushed by them. I know what's going on with the presidential, and I haven't lived there in a minute. So, I don't remember. For you guys, you each fight on the primary separately and then you join a ticket together.
We don't join on a ticket together. So governor and lieutenant governor, separate elections, separate offices.
Okay.
Um,
Us too.
yeah. So I can endorse someone for governor. I haven't yet, and I don't know if I will.
And then for the lieutenant governor, though, is it jungle as well, or is that just governor? Oh, it
Every
is.
election we have is jungle in the state of
Wow.
California. City council, attorney general, everything. It's
And
fun.
I should
I
know
like the
that.
primary.
I should know that because I was there as a voter. But this is what I mean.
Yeah.
I something I'm also trying to implement in this race is just like trust in the Democratic Party beyond just like transparency of donations, but being like when someone asks me a question, it's so easy so quickly to feel stupid that you try to bullshit some response. But
Mm.
lately I've just been like, I'm going to be transparent. I'm passionate about so many things. And I also have to memorize choreography and 8 counts every day. So like the brain can only hold so much. And I'm like, I will
Mm.
look it up, get back to you. But it's where like we don't know everything and sometimes we're wrong. But
I think people appreciate that over some kind of bullshit like 5-minute rambling answer that politicians typically give.
Did you see the interview the other day of the removal of women language and it was the DEI
Oh
guy?
yeah, 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 yeah.
I was dying at those responses. It was like
They were
the
like college
panic.
students too.
That was
Yeah.
good. Well, it's been such a joy to talk to you. And,
Um,
I think it's really cool for lieutenant governors to connect. There's so much intersectionality between Nevada and California.
mhm,
And it's something I'm really trying to educate our politicians on here because they're pretty far removed from all of the casino industries. I'm like, you guys can't just keep saying, like, we don't want to be California without ignoring that by not giving us money and higher wages and letting us like bring in these labor unions, you're forcing us to go work in California and give money back to their state instead of our state. But
mhm,
at least for dancers and entertainers, so many of us have a system where like we each work in Vegas and LA and we exchange places all the time.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of Californians moving out to Nevada. My parents being one of them. So the next time I visit them, let's grab a meal together, and you let us know next time you're
Absolutely.
in California.
I will for sure. What a joy to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks so much. Good luck with the race.
You
Talk
too.
again soon. Bye.